How are you, sir?
This is Pierre.
Oh.
I can't believe I'm talking to you, Dr. Ray the Great.
Well, I don't know about that.
I love listening to you. You have a personality just like my father.
I don't think you should feel helpless. You are helpless.
Doctor, I really appreciate that. That makes me feel a lot better.
You be at peace, or else I'm going to yell at you.
Trying to find a reason to speak to you. I think you're the best thing since sliced bread.
That Ray, he's something.
Thank you so much for what you're doing for all the parents out there.
I don't know what I can possibly do.
I don't either.
I'm getting my money worth, I think, with this phone call.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
I threw a curveball at my producers. Hi, guys. We are on board the Oasis of the Seas. Did you see that picture? I had to send that around. One of these cruise ships behind the Titanic. It makes the Titanic look like it's a tugboat. I asked Bishop Coffey last year. I said, are these things as big as aircraft carriers? He goes, yeah, they are. These things are huge. So anyway, we are on one of these, and they're floating cities. This is a pre-record, so in fact, if you're hearing this, I'm still not here. You know, the live show that we did probably a few weeks back, people were saying, the guy's still cruising? Man, he's got to be weighing 280 by now. So, in fact, I've got all your questions in front of me, and I would want to say, if you have other questions, please write them down. Come up here, get a piece of paper. Just write the questions down. I got a bunch. Are these new ones here, Steve? These ones folded in here?
Those are new.
These are anonymous, huh? Oh, all right. Giving it up for Lent. All right. Got that. Hey, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the law of the law of entropy is?
The law of entropy, if I remember right, it's the law that things decay over time.
Everything decays. That's why our universe can't be infinitely old. If our universe were infinitely old, it'd be a heat death. There'd be nothing there. Just cold gas. So, in fact, the law of entropy says your bodies are going to decay. You leave this ship in the harbor, and 100 years from now, what it might look like. Everything decays. Iron rust, everything decays. The sun's going to burn out. Give it enough time, the sun will burn out. Everything decays. That's the law. There's no way around that one. I've coined another law, and I think it affects marriages. I call it the law of social entropy. Relationships, even good ones, are in danger of decaying. Now, here's what I mean by that. You may be thinking to yourself, no, we're closer now than we ever were. Here's what I mean. Are you as mannerly with your spouse as you were when you were first dating? If somebody were to do a frequency count of your please and thank yous and your excuse me's, same number as 29 years ago? What about the compliments? You know, when you first picked her up and you always commented on how good she looked. Still do that? You still comment? You still point out the good stuff? Now, see, you may not have a bad marriage. People are going, no, our marriage is good, it's solid. We get lazy, we get sloppy. That's what happens. You have to flex, as my son would say, to keep the law of social entropy from affecting your marriage. You go into a weight room. You see these beasts in there. And you're using these little 5-pound plates, and you don't want anybody to look at you because you're doing little 5 pounds with curls, you know. You see some guy over there with an 80-pound dumbbell doing curls with an 80-pound dumbbell. You're thinking, holy mackerel. He didn't come in. His first day in the gym, he didn't go grab those 80-pound dumbbells. He worked his way up to that. The only way to get around the law of social entropy is you're going to have to work on it. You're going to have to say, am I saying thank you? For example, I would imagine that some of you have your wife routinely put your supper in front of you. They cook the supper. Now, my wife is a beautiful woman. She struggles sometimes with cooking. At our house, we pray after we eat. No, honey, she knows. She knows. I try to make it so that I thank her every single time. Thank you, honey. That was really good. Every time. You kiss her goodbye and you leave. You do that or you just walk out. It's not that you're hostile. You're not thinking I'm trying to punish anybody. You're just lazy. And that's what happens. You ever go to a restaurant and you see two people that look like they've been married 45 years, and they're in the restaurant, and even if they don't have their phones on, they're just kind of like this. You're not talking to each other. You're not saying anything. I don't have anything to say to you. You know, I can't even ask you questions. You know, where'd you get those sunglasses? We get this way, and it's part of a regression in relationships. You don't give compliments as much. You don't say please and thank you as much. You don't use kind words as much. You don't notice good things as much. You just don't do it. Not because you don't want to. There's a fancy term in psychology called hedonic adaptation. I learned that one because, I have to. You know what gets me upset? What gets me upset is people who use big words, just so they can sound all photosynthesis.
Ubiquitous.
Yeah, that's it. And hedonic adaptation says you get used to everything. First time I went to the Windjammer, I went crazy. I'm thinking, look at this. I'm pulling my seat up to the buffet and everything. This is wonderful. Well, on these cruises now, I've probably been to the Jammer maybe 30, 35 times. Yeah, it's okay.
Today?
Well, you count last week. And, yeah, it's good. I still like it. But that excitement's gone. Or when you first say you remodeled a part of your house. You did your kitchen. Wow, that's really great. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And then about a month later, you're going, I don't know if I should have got that color on the cupboards or not. I don't really know. Is that way that one cupboard opens up like that? That's kind of inconvenient. My wife and I one time, I had a talk, and these guys were very, very, very wealthy businessmen. And they said, we're going to Maui for a week, and we don't pay our speakers. And I'm thinking to myself already, well, I ain't gone. But they said, we cover everything. We'll cover everything. So, cool, okay. So we went to this resort that there's no way I should have been at that resort. There's no way. I mean, they're probably going to kick me out because you have to have a $100 bill in your pocket just to go to the bathroom. So they had these strawberries that were the size of cantaloupes. And the breakfast, my wife and I were eating breakfast. We went nuts over these strawberries. They obviously had hormonal problems. Okay, they did. We're eating these strawberries. We can't believe this. These are strawberries you could take 5, 6, 7 bites. By about the 4th day, it's like, does they have anything else? Is there anything else? I mean, strawberries are good, but, it's kind of like getting used to them. We do it. This is the human condition. And if you let it go in its direction, it'll take you over. You got to fight it. You absolutely have to fight it. I've been lifting weights all my life. When I was younger, I felt like I was lifting on the moon. Now, I feel like I'm lifting on Jupiter. And I don't really want to go in there anymore. It's harder when you get older. You're not making gains. You're just trying to stop the decline. But I make myself. Because I know if I don't do that, then I'm just going to decay. I will just decay. I will no longer be able to get out of cars as easily. I will no longer be able to climb steps. I will have a harder time getting up. I have to do that. And I think you have to do that to stop the law of social entropy. It will take over. Yeah, but, okay. Well, what if I'm the only one who does it? What if my spouse doesn't do it? I'm the one who tries to do it, and I don't see any difference on their part. One thing about being a Christian that's really kind of crappy. we're asked to do something no matter how somebody else reacts to it. I can't say, well, I'll be nice to you, but you better be nice to me. So I call that the law of social reciprocation. I expect you to treat me exactly like I treat you. And if you don't, then I'm not going to treat you that nice. Well, the problem with that is our Lord says you got to do this. Now, here's the good news. I'll illustrate it with a joke. Old country church. People are sitting there, and in the middle of the service, this hideous, sulfur-smelling creature jumps in the middle. People panic, heading straight for the exits. Except one old farmer. He's sitting in the front row. He's just sitting there, arms folded, totally unfazed. Creature says, "You know who I am?" "Yep." "You know what I could do to you?" "Yep." "You afraid of me?" "Nope." "Why?" "Been living with your sister for 40 years. Now, unless you live with Satan or his sister, almost no one is going to not react positively to being treated better. Very few people. Somebody in my office will say, "I'm the one who apologizes. I'm always the one who apologizes. I'm the one who apologizes. Don't get an apology. It's always me." Do you think that you have more or less chance of getting an apology if you continue to apologize, or if you say, "You know what, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not getting any apologies back. Why should I even waste my breath?" More or less. That's the hardest part. Doing what is good and right, even though it doesn't come back. That is the hardest part. There are people who have stormed out of my office. And because I'm such a gentle, sensitive soul, it's really, really hard for me to understand that. And you know who they are? They are Christian spouses who very, very much take pride in their Christianity. They will drag their spouse in because their spouse is not as holy as they are, although they wouldn't put it that way. Although I had one lady come in, and she had this list. It was like 5 pages long of all that was wrong with him. Unbelievable. He just sat there. I'm looking at the guy. You poor soul. And they were complaining because if my spouse were more of a Christian, we'd have a better marriage. My spouse is not a Christian, and that's the problem with our marriage. We talked for a while. And then I made my biggest mistake. And as delicately as I tried to say this, it blew up in my face. I said, "Your faith mean a lot to you?" "Absolutely." "Does your faith tell you to live a certain way?" "Yes, of course." "More charitable? More forgiving? More tolerant? Easier to get along with?" "Yes." "Well, then, that's who you're supposed to be, even if he's not." That's when they crumpled up the check, threw it on my desk, and stormed out. Because their attitude was, "How dare you imply that I am not the good one in this relationship?" And I wasn't saying any such thing. I was just simply saying, you follow a different set of principles. Your principles, because you say you're a Christian, say this. He doesn't follow those principles. So even though we're going to try to work on getting him to be a little better to live with, your principles have already said you got to be charitable, you got to be kinder, you got to be more loving, you got to be more forgiving. They didn't want to hear that. I already am. So, got to take a break now. See, I'm looking at that clock. Yeah, I rambled on there quite a bit. The law of social entropy. Watch out. It will decay any relationship, even if you don't want it to, right under your nose. I'm Dr. Ray on the Good News Marriage Cruise here on the oasis of the seas, size of an aircraft carrier.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Are you paying high prices with a traditional health insurance company that pays for things that violate your conscience? There's an alternative available. Solidarity HealthShare is a community of faithful individuals and families that never share into immoral medical services, all while saving you money with prices starting as low as $85 per month for singles and $512 for families. Never fund another abortion with your healthcare dollars. Call 844-313-4999 to learn more.
When your children consider going to college, where are you going to find a place that will prepare them for the future and build on the foundation that you've laid? The answer? Ave Maria University. With an authentically Catholic curriculum, including 35 majors, AMU prepares students to take on the world.
My daughter told me she was published in a scientific journal as an undergrad. I'm so proud of her. The world needs Catholic physicists, and my daughter's going to be one of them.
Learn more at avemaria.edu. That's avemaria.edu.
He was a pope, a saint, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
Pope St. Gregory I the Great is one of only 4 popes honored as the Great. Among his many achievements was sending missionaries across northern Europe, especially St. Augustine of Canterbury, who brought Christ to the people of England. In a pun, Pope Gregory called the English people angels. He died in 604.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In, Monday through Friday, co-production of the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network and Ave Maria Radio Communications back there in the Ann Arbor studios. This is weird, Steve. How is it that stuff just goes through the air? You know, if you would have said this 150 years ago, oh yeah, you're going to be able to just talk, and stuff's going to go through the air, and then you're going to be able to pick it up if you have a device. That's like magic. Think about that.
It is magic.
It is.
Back at the time. It's unforeseeable. I mean, I think when you compare, sound, carrier waves, photographs, recording video of the past, those are some amazing things in technology.
I could just picture me if I was standing when our Lord was saying, go and preach to all the world everything I've taught you. And I know me. I'd be thinking, all right, wait a minute. Now, I really don't know how big the world is, but I say on a good day I can walk 10 miles. Go to preach to all the world. How's that going to happen? I mean, I could see our Lord thinking, Raymond, someday the gospel is going to be in the air. And all you'll have to have is a particular device, and you can pull it out of the air and listen to it. Now I'd go, oh, get out. Come on. I know you're God and all, but come on. That's a stretch. Yeah. You know what I did, by the way? This is a little off topic, Steve. But, when you get on these cruises and things, sometimes you have to go to Mass on Saturday someplace else. And it's a parish usually far from home. So I want to give money to the parish. But I don't carry a whole lot of cash with me, so I asked my wife if she had a check. And so I wrote out a check, and I said, to God. Okay?
Paid to the order of?
Yeah. And then I didn't sign it because I figure he knows who I am. He's like that, and that's good. That's a good thing about him. I don't understand this one because I don't know the laws. How do you tell your future in-laws they can't see their grandchild since they didn't receive is it Tdap? What is a Tdap?
It's a vaccine.
Oh, okay. And it's a law that you have to be vaccinated? It's not a law. It's a recommendation. Okay. So it comes down to this. Do you want to do this? Do you want to say to the in-laws, look, man, you can't see your kid, you can't see your grandkid if you don't do this? Now, before these vaccinations, what did we do? I mean, I'm sure that they made it a little more safer, of course, but it's interesting. I guess this reflects to me a lot of what's happening that I hear from grandparents, which is, I had a lady tell me yesterday, I teased her. She said, yeah, my son married his wife, and she's my daughter-in-law. And I teased her. I said, well, you better be careful about what you do. You know, you could do something wrong. She goes, I already did. I said, what'd you do? She said, the baby was in a carrier. He was awake. I reached over to pick him up. No. Don't pick him up. Not until it's time. So she already broke a rule. Now, many of you probably had a more relaxed style of parenting than some of these younger people here. That's part of the reason my wife and I had 10 kids. You can blow a couple. You know what I mean? You can. If 3 of them turn out okay, that's 300. That's Hall of Fame. So I guess you have to weigh this. You probably, and I'm trying to figure out, is this, it says for my daughter. So in other words, the daughter has decided, I don't want you near this newborn if you don't get these shots. Now, what's confusing me is, I'm assuming that the grandparents are older, 50, 60, and they never got these vaccines ever as kids? No? Okay. Oh, they want a booster? Yeah. Okay.
This is for tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussin.
Okay.
Not Robitussin. Pertussin.
Okay. Percussion? Like drums? They don't want you to play drums in front of the kids?
Something like that.
So, I mean, tetanus, okay. Tetanus, you're not going to probably step on something and get all kinds of bacteria in there. Probably not diphtheria either. So I guess I'm confused about this, and I think I would probably talk to the daughter and say, why did you decide this? What are the risks? They're probably minuscule, but who am I to say? And they could do what they want. But unfortunately, this could set this relationship off on a bad leg here. All right? When we had our 7th child, we adopted little Petey, and he was very small. Very, very small. He was born 2 months premature, 1 month intensive care, very, very fragile, very fragile. And my wife said, kids, now look, Mom and Dad are going to be the only ones that hold Petey because he's just really, really, he's 4 pounds, really small, and he's delicate. We just got him out of the wires and everything. Well, that lasted about 3 hours. When we got Petey home, my wife said to my daughter Hannah, who was 6, Hannah, can you feed Petey? Took care of that. There's a certain relaxation that comes with having more than one child. I would bet this is the first child. You know, it's got to be. I'm Dr. Ray. Thanks for joining me here. Oasis of the Seas. Boat is sitting a little lower in the water. Couple too many days at the buffet. As St. Paul says, he advises us, I did not shield my face from buffets. That's scripture. Look it up. My husband is here under... Now, there's a carrot there. Under slight protest. He's not in this room, is he? Good. I really want to go to next year's cruise. And then she put, with him. He doesn't want to go. Says, I can go by myself or with a friend. This makes me very sad. Well, you got a year. That's one thing. You don't know yet. Of course, you might say, no, I don't have a year because they're gonna fill up, and basically we'll have one more month. I guess the only thing I could say is, I'd first of all try to get inside his head. Why don't you want to go? What is it? Tell me what it is about the people there, about hearing this religious stuff. He doesn't like the religious stuff. Tell him, I'll tell you what I'll do. Tell you what I'll do. We won't go to any religious talk. That's it. We'll hit the buffets like Ray does. That's it. We don't go to any religious talk. And I won't go to Mass. If you want to sleep in, I'll go to Mass. But if not, if you're awake, I won't go to Mass. Oh, he likes Mass? Well, then what is it about the speakers? I'm taking a little offense here. Okay, so find out what it is, and then basically compromise on it. Compromise. Just say, okay, we will not go to any activity you don't want to go to, and that's fine with me. And I'm not going to be a sourpuss, moody, bratty, because you didn't. I'm not going to do that. I just want to be with you for a week. That's all. We'll eat. We'll just do fun things. All of that. Go to the beach. It'll be a vacation. That's the way you got to frame it. She's looking at me like, no, it ain't going to work. Well, you tried that for this one. Did you make him go to those talks? No? Okay. Did he not go to those talks? He went to a few. All right. So then, if you say it's the religious stuff, but he didn't go to the talks, what's the objection? You need to find out. Tell him that. You say, look, if it's the religious tone of this cruise, and I'm saying you don't have to expose yourself to any of that, then what is it? Now, I know it is. I know what he's going to say. All these religious people floating all over the place. No, none of that. We'll chat later. All right. All right. What advice would you give to a, looks like, working man who grew up as an only child? I was raised as an only child, by the way. I was, yeah. It bothered my brothers and sisters so much. Who grew up as an only child with 3 young boys, 10, 8, 4 and a half, who seemed to fight constantly. Well, I don't think they seem to fight constantly. They probably do fight constantly. There's a problem with this. See, sibling quibbling is one of these things that parents have a tough time with. Why? It's a high-frequency behavior. Anytime you have a high-frequency behavior, you get inconsistent. If I were to discipline them every time they fought, I'd be disciplining them constantly. That's all I'd be doing. No, you wouldn't. You discipline them every time they fight, you will discipline them less. So maybe you have a house rule. Maybe he left. I don't know if he left or not. The rule is this. Nobody's allowed to mistreat anybody in this house. Name calling, taunting, jumping off the ropes, soap in the eyes, razor blade in the gloves. Nothing. If you do, I ask no questions. You both get the same thing. Now, say, for example, the 10 and the 8-year-old. You're going to write 100 sentences every time. I will get along with my brother. 4.5-year-old, stand in a corner every time. Every time. See, the problem is parents don't do it every time. I'll ask them in my office, how often do they do this? Oh, I can't count that. Well, give me a number. Oh, it's all the time. How about 20? Ooh, that sounds like a lot. Now, wait a minute. If it's a Saturday and they're awake 15 hours, that's only once an hour. Oh, it's more than that. Right. So let's say 40. 40 pieces of mistreatment among 3 boys here. Any combination, permutation. How often do you discipline them for this? That they accept. And then the parent stops because they only do it once or twice a day. So I say, so you're disciplining at an under 5% consistency level. You don't stop anybody with that level unless you're shooting a bazooka. That'll stop them. But short of that, you're allowing this to go on. It isn't automatic. People say, well, kids fight. Well, yeah, they do. And if you say to yourself, as long as they're not hurting each other, I'm just going to let them blow it off themselves. Okay, some parents do that. But if you say, no, I don't want them treating each other like that, what are you going to do about it? Most parents are way, way below where they think they need to be to stop this. Any frequency behavior like that, disrespect, that's a high-frequency misbehavior. Bedtime, bad times, high-frequency misbehavior. Meal ordeals, chore shirking, homework hassles, arguing. My wife had a phrase she used to ask the kids. Are you arguing? That was her signal. Stop right now. Stop right now or there will be consequences. She's not going to carry on this argument. She'd do that with me. I'd say, honey, can I go? Raymond, are you arguing? I said this last night, but maybe some of you weren't there. I remember when my daughter, she was 4, started getting snotty. And one day she looked at her mother and she said, no, if I don't want to, I don't have to. And my wife said, Raymond, you handle her, please? So I took her into another room and I got down on her level, like the shrinks tell you, get on their eye level. And I said, can you teach me how to do that? What else we got here? This one is for Father Joseph, My son is engaged and has told me he's not getting married in the church. How do I participate and love him and his future wife without offending our Lord Jesus? Okay, loving him and his future wife is not going to offend our Lord Jesus. All right, those two are not antagonistic. What you're questioning is, what do I do about going to the Mass? Well, it's not even a Mass. Whatever service he chooses. I've seen priests come down on both sides of this. Some will say, if this is going to really damage the relationship, get it off on a bad foot. Deacon, am I right on this? They come down on both sides. Some are more conservative, and they'll say, no, you just cannot go if he's Catholic. Let me pick this up on the other side there, because that's the hard music. I'm Dr. Ray, and I thank you so much for joining me here on the Good News Cruise. Well, you're not here, but you're also not paying anything.
He was absolutely the most amazing man that America has ever created, ever.
Moving close to the end here of the Doctor is In. Docazin is a drug that is, you can get it. It's off patent. For years it was on patent. The generic is tricyclinol. Helps with all kinds of psychological maladies. Good thing we have Deacon in front here, because he's helped me with this question, because he clarified it. This is, my son is engaged, told me he's not getting married in the church. Now, I assumed automatically that meaning to a girl. If he's getting married of same sex, then you can't go. Flat out. You just can't go. If he's marrying a girl, it comes down to, for a lot of priests, I've heard them on both sides, and many of them are Orthodox. You would consider them very Orthodox priests, and they would say it really comes down to what would be the repercussions here? What would be the damage? Now, you could explain it. You could say, you understand, you were raised Catholic. I so much wish you were married in the church. I had that with my daughter. She got married outside the church. And she came to me, and she said, Dad, I want you to walk me down the aisle. They're getting married on a beach in San Diego. I said, I can't do that. I can't walk you down the aisle. She said, Dad, we're married. My wife and I said, well, you think you're married. That's you were raised Catholic, and you got married by a pastor in the army. Dad, we're married. Well, unbeknownst to me, they'd gotten their marriage blessed. So at that point, I said, oh, okay, I can do that. Now, I was going to go to that particular conception, whatever it was, even though I didn't think they had gotten their marriage blessed. But with their marriage best, I could fully participate. So they knew where we stood. We had explained it. But I wasn't necessarily going to go all the way to say, okay, that's it. You do that, I'm not there. That's me. Deacon, is that within the kind of flexibility that the church would allow? Deacon Joe's nodding yes on that. That's been my impression. And you're going to get more of this because more and more are leaving the faith. You're going to get more of unbaptized grandchildren. You're going to get more of these kind of situations. You're going to get a lot more same-sex attractions coming to you. Those things are exploding. 15 years ago, first of all, I got no transgenders 15 years ago. None. Zero. In terms of same-sex, few here and there. Now, parents are coming at me left and right, telling me that their 20-year-old, 22-year-old, 26-year-old has decided that they were same-sex. Let's see what else we got here. What is the best approach? Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to say the best approach. To re-engage adult children who have fallen away from the Catholic Church. Most of us want to correct them. Most of us want to say, but wait a minute. This is what God says, and God says to do it this way, and this is why you need to do it this way, and then they just dig in their heels and back off. People come into my office, and they tell me the most rot-gut, nonsensical, hurtful stuff to other people in their lives. If I were to say, what are you, crazy? What are you doing? Get your act together. That'd be the last time I'd see them. I got to sit there. I got to go, so what happened when you did that? What prompted you to do that? Why are you thinking that you're going to be happier leaving your wife and 3 kids, the 16-year-old who's not going to talk to you now, rather than staying in your marriage? I got to get inside their head. I got to find out what is it that's making you think this way. That's the best way to get them back. Well, it's the best way to get them to think about it. A small percentage of them would be willing to read something. For my money, one of the best books to read, there's a couple of them. Peter Kraft and Ron Taselli wrote a book, Handbook of Catholic Apologetics. Now, that's kind of a long, clunky title. But he uses logic and evidence to explain the faith. He doesn't say, okay, Scripture says this. He doesn't do that. He says, let's look at our options from a logical, evidentiary point of view. One of the best books I've seen for that. Talks about how do you know Jesus is God? How do you know He wrote? But it's very powerful in its scientific evidence, and this is one you could give to your engineering son. 56% of them are believers. And the reason for this is because science in the last 20-so years has really come to the point where science points to God. The stuff that we're learning about the universe and about the way things are designed is pointing straight at God. And the younger guys know it. The older guys probably went through that period of time when, science is going to show us that we don't need a God, kind of thing. The book is called, I got to get this right. I'm going to mix it up. It's by Father Robert Spitzer, and is Reason, Christ, and Mary. Reason, Mary, and Christ, Evidence, Christ, and Mary, something like that. He talks about the shroud. He talks about Eucharistic miracles. He talks about Fatima. He talks about Lourdes, and he talks about them from a very powerful scientific evidence. Now, it's a little heady, but those chapters are somewhat easy to understand. And something I would give, I gave a couple of them to my sons. Okay, I gave it to my brother. Spitzer has a lot of those kinds of books, so I would really suggest that. And every once in a while, you remember Columbo? Okay, I love Columbo. Why? Because he always came off as such a doofus, and he made people underestimate him. This guy can't figure out anything, and he'd always do this. One more thing, something I just don't understand. And I think sometimes you got to be a Columbo when you're trying to get inside somebody's head on why they left the church. Well, okay, help me out. So you think it's a woman's decision to abort the baby in her womb? Okay, how did you decide that? What is it about that? You can start out by going, Well, that's a baby. God tells you it's a baby. You know, God is clear about that. No, you do that, forget it. You're just, come on, get out of here. No, I want to know, how did you decide that? Well, you know, I'm not totally sure what it is. Okay. How will you be sure? In other words, you just keep going. You just keep taking them down the path. Immorality is illogical. And if you get somebody to explain a certain immoral perspective, and they have to explain it through your questioning, they're going to fall apart. My brother left the church some years ago, and he was throwing all the objections, the Catholic objections, at me. And I was asking him questions. And he was getting flustered. And at one point he said something, and I said, Mike, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, bad move. He got really, really, really mad. And then he told me later, he said, you know, Ray, as I was listening to myself, it was clear to me, I didn't know what I was talking about. Because I was asking him questions. You explain to me why you think this. And I'm making him carry this out. And he was getting upset. People get upset when you do that. Because most of the time, they haven't thought through their positions. So that's what I would suggest on that. See, what do we got here? What's 3 minutes? 3 minutes? Okay, I got time for another one here. What do we got here in this one? Please speak to us about rebuilding broken trust in a marriage. Now, they're not referring to an adulterous relationship. They're talking about looking at other women, going to bad websites. My first question would be, is this a male or female writing this? Is this an individual who says, I've done these things, and my wife now doesn't trust me? Okay, so let's take it from that perspective first. Priests will tell you, pretty much the number one thing they hear in confession from guys is pornography. They'll tell you that. And by the way, just a thought here. You know what percentage of 11 to 19-year-old boys have seen pornography on their phones or on their internet? It's 90. It's 90%. Okay, so it's there and it's going to happen. So given that, what can you commit? If you can say, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get a flip phone. I'm getting a flip phone. And you put a password on that computer. So I can't go on that computer without you coming in and putting the password on. Or put the computer in the kitchen. I will commit to you that I will not allow myself to have access to this stuff. If that's what it takes to show you, I mean it. Now, if it's coming from the woman's perspective, and she's saying, he looks at other women. Well, I always would have to ask, well, how does he look at other women? I mean, there's a lot of pretty women out there. You could look at pretty women. That's okay. Is he commenting on their particulars? What is it that he's actually doing here? Looking at other women. And if you say, well, it just bothers me that he looks at other women, then you got to look at yourself. You got to say, why am I so insecure? Am I carrying 80 extra pounds? And I figured he doesn't want to look at me, so he's looking at other women. You got to ask yourself a few tough questions. Or is he ogling other women? Now, you know, look out. Now, that's getting a little bit. And then ask him, why? Well, I can look at the menu. I don't have to order. Yeah, okay, but if it bothers your wife, don't do it. Okay? Going to bad websites, and that's pornography. Yeah. And many wives will tell me, it's more common with men, of course, but the women are catching up. That's a problem here with the women's movement. You guys are picking up all of our bad pathologies. If he says, I'm not doing anything wrong, it's a victimless crime. Now you got yourself a roadblock here. You might ask a few questions like, you know that's somebody's daughter? Would you want that to be your daughter? You know You're helping this person because most of them are on drugs. Ask some questions. Maybe you'll appeal to his practical side rather than, it's a victimless crime. It's not a victimless crime. If you look at the stats, oh man, the stats are off the charts in terms of suicide, in terms of all kinds of pathologies, in terms of depression, fractured social relationships. It's off the charts. I always notice on TV, you know, when they have a porn star on TV, and she's talking like, you know, that's just who I am, and I feel so free, and just express who I am. And the host is gushing all over her. You know, it's just something to see that. I'm going to go, yeah, she's telling you that in a 6-minute interview. Look inside her life. And you just whispered in my ear, don't forget break? Okay, I won't forget break. This is Dr. Ray.
Everybody has had one, and one is enough for anybody.
Dr. Ray has more great advice soon. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, Steve Ray here. We're going to Normandy, France in November to celebrate the 80th anniversary of D-Day. We'll also be in Paris for the opening of the resurrected Notre Dame Cathedral. Join us on a pilgrimage of discovery through the saints and shrines of France. Catherine Labourier and the Miraculous Medal, St. Therese of Lisieux, the incorrupt body of Vincent de Paul, a dinner cruise through Paris on the Seine River, and so much more.
Find the Ave Maria Radio travel tab at AveMariaRadio.net. The Heart of the Interior Life with Elizabeth Jangle.
How does God act when a person moves closer to Him? St. Ignatius of Loyola writes in the second of his 14 rules for the discernment of spirits, and it is proper to the good spirit to give courage and strength, consolations, tears, inspirations, and quiet, easing and taking away all obstacles, so that the person may go forward in doing good. God gives courage and strength to help a person continue to rise from good to better. God also gives consolations and tears. Consolation is a happy, uplifting movement of the heart that assists us in our service to the Lord. Tears reflect the working of God's grace within our hearts. God also gives inspirations that lead to spiritual clarity. He gives a quiet peace within the heart and an easing and taking away of all obstacles. So, as St. Ignatius says, that the person may go forward in doing good.
For more information, visit AveMariaRadio.net.
This program brought to you in part by Ave Maria, Florida, a big kind of small town where golf carts take you everywhere and there's always something fun around the corner. Discover championship golf, resort-style amenities, and a town center full of shopping and dining. With Ave Maria University and Ave Maria Catholic Church at its heart, it's a community full of connection and charm. More than 25 model homes are available for viewing. More information can be found at AveMaria.com. That's AveMaria.com.
Thank you so very much for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. We've got about a minute and a half left. I know many of you are heading out to see Father Josh, who is a very, very exciting young priest. He truly is. My wife appreciates what he has to say, and I appreciate those of you who stuck around here. It tells me one of two things about you. You're eager to learn whatever you can pick up here and there, or you have no life whatsoever. So I do appreciate that. This is about it, so we're done. And somebody asked me, how long do you think you're going to do this? And to be straight with them, I say, I don't know. I really don't know. I think as long as God allows me. I'm not laying brick. You know, my dad worked in a factory until he was 65, and he just beat the snot out of his body. So when 65 came for my dad, he jumped at retirement. Well, what am I doing? I'm sitting here. And the worst thing I had to do is stretch my arm out to get this water bottle. You know, pulled something in my shoulder there, Steve. Thanks. But in fact, this is, I never would have dreamed this. I remember I used to do a lot of secular media, just a ton of secular media. And the producers used to say, you should have your own show. You should have your own show. Well, it never happened. I mean, there were offers and things, but it just never happened. And I got to the age where I thought, well, I'm a little too old to have my own show now. That's not going to happen. Well, little did I know that I'd have the opportunity to be with EWTN, to be on the radio with them and on TV with them. And I guess, I don't want to presume on knowing God's motives, but I guess maybe he was letting me shape up so that whatever I learned in those secular years I could bring into the world of faith and hopefully have some abilities. But I do appreciate those of you who stuck around here and didn't go to the bathroom for 2 hours. Walk with God.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.